My grandfather, Russell Laub, grew up on a farm in Dry Valley, Mifflin County, Pennsylvania. He went to school to the 8th grade and went home to help on the farm, following the well-worn path set before him by his older siblings and generations before them. My father, the older boy in the photo with his father and his younger brother, grew up on a farm in the same valley. Dad grew strong from throwing bales of hay and doing farm chores, and when he was about the age he is in the second photo, the school photo, a friend of his approached him and they were wrestling, and the other kids saw Dad's muscular strength and his quickness, and he said, "Rodney, you really should go out for the wrestling team." Well, Dad thought about it a little bit and went in and talked to the coach and brought home the paper that had to be signed by his father. Now, my grandparents grew up during the Depression, and any time that you weren't working, sleeping, or eating, you were wasting time. You know, you don't have time to play. Games are for kids. He never understood the point in sports. But my father was really wanting to do this, and my grandfather relented and said, "Go ahead and do it." Well, off to wrestling practice my father went. He was pretty good in the wrestling room, in the wrestling mat. So good, in fact, that he gained the attention of Lycoming College head wrestling coach Bud Whitehill from right here in Williamsport. Bud made the 90-minute trek to Mifflin County to meet with my father a few times, and liking what he saw, he asked my father if he would consider coming to wrestle for him at Lycoming College. Now, Dad, keep in mind, he's about to be the first in his family to graduate from high school. College was not on his radar. That was not the plan. His plan was to graduate from high school, get a job at a local factory, and own a fast car. College wasn't there, but he liked Bud Whitehill and trusted him and believed in what he was telling him. And again, he went to his father with what he wanted to do. Now, I obviously wasn't there. I wasn't born yet when this conversation took place, but I have to think maybe my grandfather was a little bit more boisterous with his words on this conversation. My grandfather could not understand why my father would want to pay money to take classes to get a degree when there are all kinds of jobs out there. My grandfather worked 3 jobs. He didn't need to go. You don't need to go to college to do that. Well, my father was able to somewhat convince my grandfather that Bud was able to help my father procure monies, and very little money would come out of pocket. My grandfather very reluctantly said, "Okay, go ahead and do it." So off to Lycoming College my father went. Bud said to him, "So what are you interested in?" "I don't know. I mean, I like science." "Okay, well, then you're going to be a biology major." Dad ended up graduating 4 years later with a Bachelor's of Arts in biology education. And there just so happened to be an opening at Jersey Shore Area High School, 12 miles down the road, for an assistant football coach, a full-time biology teacher, and a full-time head wrestling coach. Dad was a shoo-in. So he went and applied, got all 3 of those positions, and off to Jersey Shore Dad went. Dad ended up coaching football for just a few years until the family grew. He taught biology and then driver's ed from 1964 until he retired from teaching in 2000. And he coached wrestling from 1964 to 1988. When my father retired from coaching wrestling, he was one of Pennsylvania's winningest high school wrestling coaches from that time period, and in recent years was inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in Stillwater, Oklahoma. This is a picture of them his senior year of college, and this is a picture of him coaching. Do you see the positive rippling effect there? Where would we be had Bud Whitehill not reached out to my father all those years ago? Now, I'm not saying that if Dad were a farmer, it would have been terrible. I mean, farmers are hard workers. We still have family in that valley that are farmers, and that's some hard work. But that wasn't the path that my dad was led on, because Bud Whitehill made a point of driving that 90-minute track to meet with my father. Where would I be? Where would all those wrestlers be? All those people. My sister and I are both teachers and have always looked up to our father and wanted to be like him. And if we can reach just a fraction of people that he's reached, we will have led successful lives. That is powerful. That's a life worth living. Hi, I'm Laub Yoder, and I have the very best job in the world. I'm a teacher, or as I like to think of it, I'm a creator of positive seeds in young people. I've taught children as young as 3 and as old as 18 years old, in 3 different states and in many different types of classrooms. My sister, brother, and I realize how lucky we are to have been born to the parents we were born to. This talks more about my dad, but my mom has been just as influential in my life. We were very positive. Grew up in a very positive family. Not everybody has that. I truly believe that Maslow comes before Bloom. In other words, we need to meet children's fundamental needs such as security, belonging, self-esteem, food, water. We need to make sure these kids have food in their stomachs and that they know they have a place to sleep tonight before we can even be concerned about higher order thinking skills or academics or standardized test scores. The first thing you need to do is build relationships with people. I'm going to tell you some ideas that you can use. Be a positive influence on other people. The first is to build relationships. Just like Bud built a relationship with my father, building relationships is huge. Who can you build up and make feel better about themselves? Your own kids, a neighbor, a babysitter, maybe the girl at the grocery store that always has a frown on her face. Who can you build up? Everybody needs a cheerleader. Number 2, be intentional in how you serve others. There was a girl who was a kindergartner. I knew her because she was on the bus route. She rode a bus to school. And she came to school. She was the oldest of 3 kids. She was being raised by her father. Mom wasn't in the picture. And she would come to school in mismatched clothes or clothes that were maybe a little bit too big for her. They were hand-me-downs. And she had broken shoelaces. She would come to school like that. And we knew her dad was raising her by himself. Mom wasn't in the picture. And be honest with you, if I was in the same situation as that father, my kids wouldn't look any different. But she was going to school with little girls who had hair bows to match every outfit. She really stood out. And when she was in her kindergarten class, one of the little girls in the class called her a derogatory name. And it wasn't something that she heard on the playground. It was something that, it was definitely an adult word. The little girl was mortified. And the teacher was mortified. I heard about it and went home after school. I went to the store and just got a couple little outfits that I thought might fit her. A brush and a comb and a mirror. And took them home. I went to, told my neighbor what I was doing, and she had a little girl, and she gave me some clothes. She said, I was going to give these to the Goodwill. Take these clothes. I had a whole bunch of clothes. Went to school the next day, put them all out in my classroom, and I started walking to the girls' class. And then the whole time I'm doing this, I thought, I don't even know how I'm going to pull this off. How am I going to get this little girl down here? But God gives you the right words at the right time. And I opened the classroom door, and I said to the teacher, is Sally Jones here? She's right there. I said, come here. She came over, and she looked at me. She knew she wasn't one of my students. And she came over, and I said, I put all the little girls' names, whole school, in a hat. And I picked a name, and guess what? You won. You won a makeover. And she looked at me, and she was real excited because I was excited. She didn't know what a makeover was. But we walked down there, and we opened the door, and she saw all these clothes and all these things like that. I said, all this is yours. What's going to fit you? What do you like? And she touched everything, felt everything, and she picked an outfit. We tried it on her. It fit perfectly. Fixed her hair as best I could. And unbeknownst to me, the word spread through the day like wildfire. And people would see, teachers would see her and say, look at you look so pretty. And she'd look at them, and her eyes would flutter. She said, I want a makeover for Miss Crystal. That cost me very little money. And it really wasn't about the money. Anytime you can bring kindness to someone else, do it, because it'll come back to you tenfold. Be courageous. I was a brand new teacher, and I was in a faculty that I was the youngest by far. There were a lot of older teachers way closer to retiring age. And something happened, and I was it wasn't sitting well with me. And we had a faculty meeting. I'm thinking about this. It's just churning in my head the whole meeting. And the principal said, does anyone have anything they want to add? And I had my hand raised and stood up before I could second guess myself. And he said, Crystal, what do you have to add? I said, I just want to say, I will not talk about my students in the teacher's lounge. I said, we walk in there, and it's a little room. There's a door that's open that goes into another room. That there's a copy machine and the mailboxes, and there are parents back there more often than not. I said, we walk in there, and you don't look in that other room to see. And let me tell you, if you think those parents aren't listening to every word we say, you're wrong. Well, I sat back down, and I thought, oh my goodness, did I just do that? That wasn't me. I had courage and strength that I didn't know I had. Another instance happened. I was teaching special ed, and I had kids who just came to me for academics, and they were in their homeroom for all their classes, for morning and routine, the routine specials and things. And one little girl I had, she looked different. She just was a different kid. And her first grade teacher had a basket outside her classroom that had the teacher's name on it, had an apple with each child's name, and the little girl's name was spelled wrong. And the little girl told me the first day of school, and I told her, honey, you know what, I'm going to talk to the teacher, we'll get that fixed. And so the second day, I kept reminding the teacher, and it didn't get changed. Finally, I don't know how much time went on, because I really wasn't sure what to do. I made an apple that had the little girl's name spelled right to make it look as much like the others as I could. And I should have just plastered it up on the bulletin board and not said a word, but I handed it to the teacher. And the teacher said, oh, that's okay, I'm going to take that down today anyway. Do you see how that teacher didn't make a ripple? Instead, she made that little girl feel worthless and disregarded, like she didn't matter. In both of those scenarios, I had a choice to make. I could either take action with my words, which is what I did, or I could have been inactive and done nothing. What would you do? Would you stand up for what's right, what you know is right, even if it made you uncomfortable and maybe got people a little bit upset? Or would you do the easier thing and sweep it under the rug and not get involved? Next one is follow your dreams. In the last two instances, I was burned out. That was early in my teaching years, and I thought I'm never going to teach again. I mean, I'm just not. I got married, had kids, boom, boom, boom. Our kids became real close together. And I was home with my kids, and my mom would call, and she'd say, Crystal, I can't tell you how many times she did this to me. Crystal, you always wanted to be a teacher. That's what you always wanted to do. You wanted to be a mom and a teacher. Will you ever teach again? And at first I'd say, Mom, and then after a while I'd say, Mother. I would sooner do anything than ever teach again. Follow your dreams. We moved to a suburb of Memphis, Tennessee. And Memphis itself is pretty high in crime rate, and there are kids involved in drugs and crime and gangs and everything and things that they shouldn't be involved in. I was home with my kids. Our boys were 3, 6, and 7, and got them to bed one night. It was 8 o'clock at night, and I said to my husband, I think I know what I want to do. And he said, okay, what? What do you want to do? I said, if I go back to teaching, I want to teach in the most troubled section of Memphis with the most troubled kids. In the most troubled school, in the most troubled classroom. I said, I want to shed light on those kids. You know, nobody picks the family they're born into. I mean, it's just luck of the draw when you're up in heaven. You come down. You have no say. And I want to show them that there's a better way of life, that I want to shed light on them. And my husband looked at me. He said, okay, Crystal, what I want you to do is sleep on that. And in the morning, never mention it again. And I did for a little while. I didn't do that. Our youngest son was 3 and in preschool. And I would go, I had kids at home. So I would go and I'd make things and bring all the craft stuff and make stuff with the kids. And I was always doing something. And one of the supervisors of the program one day said, Crystal, Ellen wants to see you. Ellen was the director of the program. She's way up there. She wants to talk to you. I said, okay, well, what does she want to talk to me about? I mean, give me an idea. Oh, I can't tell you. I'm thinking, I've paid my tuition. Maybe I shouldn't be doing these crafts. Maybe I'm causing a disruption in the school. You know, maybe I shouldn't be. I was buying the materials. It wasn't like I was expecting payment. I thought I couldn't figure out for the life of me what Ann wanted. So I went upstairs to Ellen's office, and she said, Crystal, sit down. And I sat down. She said, our 4-year-old teacher is leaving after Christmas, and we want you to take the position. And I just looked at her, and first of all, I thought, okay, how does she even know I'm a teacher? And second, how often does that happen? I was looking for a job. I was happy being a stay-at-home mom. But I really liked the idea of getting back into the classroom and working with these 4-year-olds. So I made a list of all my questions. I went home and talked to my husband, and I decided, you know what, I think I want to do this. So I ended up going back in when they asked me to do that. I taught for a few years at the preschool, and then I went to my son's elementary school and taught. So this should really say, follow your dreams, or your dreams will come after you. And last is spread sunshine on barren lands. This is probably my favorite. When we moved back here, we're originally from this area. When we moved back here, I taught educated youth. And I taught kids, they were teenagers, so 13 to 18, I taught them English. And I loved those kids. I would often say that I have the best job in the world. I mean, this is the best job. I mean, I'm getting these kids right in the crosshairs. They're at a crossroads where they have made mistakes up to this point, but you know what? You're at a point where you're going to be held accountable. And I tell the kids this all the time, that I love my job. And the one girl one day, she stood up and looked at me. She said, Miss Crystal, why in the world would you want to teach us? We're just a bunch of juvenile delinquents. And I caught my breath, which I was often catching my breath with them. They'd say things like, oh my gosh. And I said, first of all, I don't want to hear you say that again. You've made mistakes. Everybody's made mistakes. Is there anybody here that's never made a mistake? Raise your hand. Anyone in the back? Anyone? Anyone as a teenager not making mistakes? Oh, Lordy. We won't let my parents get on the stage because they could tell some stories on me. And I told those kids I wouldn't go back to those days for anything. Of all the days I've gone through, those were the hardest days. I'd sooner go home to 3 preschoolers. But I would tell them, you got to put your past behind you. You can't keep living that. Your past is behind you. Your eyes are in front of you. Keep looking forward. Keep moving forward. With those kids, I could be silly sometimes. And you'd think they wouldn't have time for that. They'd be like, oh, gosh, here she is again. They ate it up. I had a group, I was having them writing essays. Can you imagine that with educated youth? But I had them quiet. I knew they knew what they were doing. One little girl brought her paper up to me. And she was with us for the second time. And you could tell she wasn't feeling good about herself. She'd gained weight. Who knows what she was dealing with at home. And her paper was really nice. Everyone else was working hard. And I looked at this and I called her back up. I said, this is awesome. She said, oh, thanks, quietly. And I said, no, you don't understand. I've been looking at these papers all day long. And you followed the directions I gave you. You looked at my rubric. I mean, this is awesome. I mean, this is the best paper I've seen all day. And I got a quiet thanks. And with as much of a southern accent as I could put on, I said, you've got it going on. And she looked at me kind of weird. There's a boy over here watching this whole talk. And everything I'm saying, his mouth is dropping farther and farther. And I said, you say it to the little girl. And she said, what do you want me to say? I said, I want you to say, I got it going on. And that little boy couldn't stand it anymore. He wasn't little, he was a teenager. His mouth dropped. He said, my goodness, Miss Crystal. He said, you need to be a real teacher. Nobody treats us that way. I don't know what he thought I was doing all day. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. So what can you do to make the world a better place? What can you do to make a difference in the lives of others? I'd like to end with this. Every person has a story to tell. Some stories are long and enlightening. Others are unfortunately rocky and short. But those stories, those individual stories, are your own legacy. It's a legacy you're told. Don't give someone else the pen. You are in charge of your own story. Tell your story. Have the courage and hope. Give people the courage and hope to look beyond what they're dealing with now, to pull themselves out of those dark times and see life through a different lens. See life differently. Be like my friend Bud Whitehill and my father Rodney Laub. Be one others should want to emulate. Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you made them feel. God bless. Thank you.